Hi, it's Stephen here at Class Act, and I want to introduce you to a brand new product we just got in the store. And I'm really excited about this product because I'm loving it. This product is so versatile. You can use it for mixed media applications, card making, scrapbooking, all kinds of things. So, what's this new product called? It's called Izink. Izink comes in these little bottles in a whole variety of different colors. I think there might be up to about 30 different colors, and it is a pigment ink and it has shimmer to it. Now, this pigment ink works a little bit differently than, say, some of the sprays or some of the Tim Holtz Distress products, because this will work with water-soluble products, it will work with alcohol products, it'll work on any surface, it'll work on paper, it'll work on photoglossy paper, it will work on metal, ceramics, glass, all of those things. It's very, very versatile. It comes in these little bottles with this little stopper at the top, which I'll show you in a second here, is not actually an eyedropper. It's actually a dropper itself, and you just drop the ink from that onto your page. But you can also take this and make it into a mist. So I'm going to show you some of the things that I've done in my art journal using all of these various colors. Now, I only bought, what have I got here? 7 colors. But after what I did today playing with this, I'm going to go and get more colors because I really love this product. So let's take a look. I'm just going to take these off of the book and show you what I've been doing with it. Okay, so here's my double page art journal background, and I did a whole variety of different things. One of the basic things you can do is simply using the dropper, paint with it. You can paint with it by making little squiggly lines, circles, that kind of thing. You can use a paintbrush with it. It doesn't matter. Whatever you're used to painting with, you can paint with this. The other thing you can do is you can add drops of it to your page like I did with this little starburst, and take a toothpick or a very fine detailed paintbrush and just pull the color out from it to give little starburst shapes around. I'm hoping you can see those. So that's a basic way to use this. But you can also take this, and because it'll work with both alcohol or water, you can make it into a mist. And this is what I did with the colors that I had. I just used the mini misters. You can use any mist ball you want. I took an eyedropper, put about 2 eyedroppers full of the Izink into my mister, and then topped the rest of it up with water. Gave it a good shake and then sprayed it. And that's what you can see on here. The background I did in about, well, I used all the colors that I have with me right now. So all these little bursts of color, the little dots, things, all of those are backgrounds using a mister. So you can use it just like you would mist any color. But remember, this does have a bit of a sheen to it. And I don't know if the light will pick it up or not, but I'll see if you can see the shimmer. So that's an added bonus. You get that shimmer effect as well. Now, the other thing that I did with it is I sponged it through a stencil, and that's what you see here in the sort of pinky colors. Actually, it's orchid, they call that one. It's right here. Very, very pretty color. Very pretty color. Um, I just put down my stencil. And one tip, I sprayed my stencil with repositionable spray, first of all, then I laid it down so it stuck to the page, and then did my sponging. That helped keep the stencil in place. You see, here's a sponging here, and I did it here in the background as well, and up here. And that's a really great idea. And repositionable spray is usually water soluble, so you can just take it, put it in your sink, and rinse it all off. You're going to be rinsing your stencils off anyways after you've sprayed them with the inks. So that's another method. You could also use your mists through the stencil as well. Now, here's something that's really cool. I took one of our Class Act mixed media rubber stamps, this one right here, and I just put a drop of the Izink color on here. I used a paintbrush just to lightly move it around on the rubber stamp, and then I stamped with it. And here you can see I got these neat little marks. They're very much like watercolor. It depends on how much ink you put on it. For example, this is a darker one because it was a first generation stamp. than I stamped off up here. So you get a lot in a bottle of this. It goes a long, long way. So that's another property. So rubber stamping with it. You can also take it and mix it with embossing paste, with plain white embossing paste. And it doesn't take very much. You only need a few drops. And then using a stencil, as I did here, you see these little yellow dots, add a little texture to my page. I just had mixed this up on my craft mat, put out a little bit of the embossing paste, put in a few drops of the color. In this case, I was using the Mimosa yellow, very nice yellow, and I just spread it through my stencil. Now, all of these colors dry very fast. It dries, depending on how thick you put it on, in about 3 to 5 minutes, or you apply your heat gun to it. Of course, with embossing paste, it's going to take a little longer for it to dry. But again, even in the embossing paste, it keeps its shimmer. You see that? Which is really nice. So I've told you about painting with it. I've told you about misting with it. I've told you about sponging it through a stencil or misting it through a stencil. And I've also talked about rubber stamping with it and using embossing paste. But what about different types of papers that you can use it with? Well, basically, you can use any kind of paper. So I tried it on cardstock. Let me get my samples. So this is ordinary cardstock. And what I did with this was I simply sprayed some of the ink out onto my nonstick craft mat. You could do it on a sheet of wax paper. If you do it on wax paper, I tried that method first. I found that if I anchored my wax paper with some repositionable tape, it helped. And you just mix the colors around. Now, first time I did it, I used a paintbrush just to kind of blend the colors through. I didn't want to blend it too much because I didn't want to create browns. But here's another property of this ink. Once this ink is dry, it stays dry. It is not like some water-soluble products like the distress inks that even though they're dry, once you put more water or moisture on it, it reactivates it. No, these don't reactivate once they're dry. So you can layer colors on top and the colors will stay true. You won't get mud. But if you're using them in liquid format, just like any kind of thing, and you're doing this method, laying it out on your craft sheet, you don't want to mix it too much or you could get mud, depending on the color combination. Once you have it on the craft mat, you just take your piece of paper, smoosh it in there. There's a technical term, smooshing, and you'll get these different patterns. Now what I did was I laid down a couple of colors first, smooshed it through, then I dried it, and then I put down some more color and smooshed it through again until I got the effect that I was looking for. So it works very well on cardstock, but you can up it a little bit. The one thing about the cardstock is, because it's very moist, it does tend to warp. Now these would make great backgrounds on cards or cut out embellishments in them, whatever. But the other thing that I tried it with watercolor paper. Now watercolor paper is more substantial. And I found with the watercolor paper that it held its shape better using the same method as I just explained. But if you notice, and I don't know if the light will catch it, this actually maintained the shimmer as well. And I think part of the reason for that is with watercolor paper, it's designed so that water-soluble inks stay closer to the surface than in, say, ordinary cardstock, which basically absorbs the color. And although there's a bit of shimmer to this, there's more shimmer, I think, to the watercolor. So that's another technique. Now, what I really liked is doing it on photo glossy paper. You know, the kind of paper you might print your pictures out on? Well, same method, laid the ink down on my craft sheet, gave it a little swirl around, and just took my cards and dipped them through. And I did dry this between layers just to keep my colors true. But I think the effect is spectacular. This would make a really nice background on a card. And again, you've got a bit of shimmer to it. I also did it, this particular method, I did the same kind of thing, I just used less color. But then there is a type of paper that is glossy, but it's actually not paper. It's made from a polymer plastic. It looks like paper. It has a lot of the same properties as paper, except it has the properties of a glossy paper. It will resist the color. And as it resists the color, you will find that it sits on the surface a little bit longer. And because it sits on the surface a little bit longer, you have more open time with it. So what I did with this is I did the background, the yellows and the greens, smooshing it about on my art sheet or my craft sheet, and then I put a few drops of the blue across the top and held it up and spritzed it with my water bottle so that it would start to run. And I just let it do its thing. I just let it run. And it pooled up near the bottom, so I just held it over my craft sheet and let the drips go off. And then when it had slowed down the dripping process, I wiped a little bit off down here on the edge, and then I let it dry. And I used my heat dryer for it, but you could just let it air dry as well. Depends on how much time you want to spend with it. Now, I think all of these are fantastic, but the piece that really got me excited was using my embossing folders with it. This is just a piece of ordinary cardstock. First of all, I just used one color of Izink on this, and I just sprayed it. In this case, I just misted it with it, let it sit for a bit so the color would soak into the paper a bit, and then I dried it. And then I took my embossing folder and I embossed it just as you would with any embossing folder. This one I used as a Christmas theme here, snowflakes, winter kind of thing. And then to get this to pop on top, I took some gesso. If you're not familiar with gesso, gesso comes in various brands. This is the one I happen to use. We have some gesso in the store usually as well, a little different brand, but it all works the same. And what gesso is used for by artists is to give prime, basically prime a background, paper, canvas, whatever. It's white. It's basically a watered down white paint with some grounds in it, they call it, to give it a little bit of an edge to it. So all I did was I put a little gesso out on a scrap piece of paper, and I took a brayer and I just rolled the brayer into it very lightly, got my brayer coated in the gesso, and then on another piece of scrap paper I just ran the brayer to take a little of the excess off because I didn't want a real heavy coat, and then just brayered over the top of this. Just gave it a couple of swipes. That was enough for the gesso to pick up on the raised parts of the embossing. Gave it a dry with my heat gun, and then to give it even a little bit more sparkle to it, I misted it with Glimmer Mist from Tattered Angels. We sell this in the store as well. And I used the Dazzling Diamonds on this one. I just gave it a light mist of that, and again, let it dry. And I think I've got a really spectacular card background. And again, see the shimmer? Bonus on that. Now, the other things you can do with the Izinks is you can also put these on ceramic, or you can put them on metal, foil, metal sheets, shimmer sheets. It'll basically dry on anything. If you're going to use it on ceramics, for example, I saw a video where a lady took a plain white coffee mug and painted stripes on it using the Izink. Then she let it dry, but then it did say that you put it in an oven for about 20 minutes at 300 degrees, and that really sets the Izink on it. Now, I'm not sure if it makes it dishwasher safe or not, but that's an interesting idea. You can put it on glass. So you want to take a plain, ordinary glass vase, say from the dollar store, and fancy it up. You can use your Izinks on it. And another technique I saw was taking some of those plain little metal boxes that you can buy at almost anywhere, and decorating those using the various methods I've already talked about, but doing it on metal. And again, you heat set it with your heat gun, and it stays. It's permanent. So this is an exciting product. It's not an expensive product, and as I said, there's about 30 different colors. Now, we don't have all the colors in the store yet, but we may have. But do come on into the store, check out some of my sample pieces there so you can see what it's like in real life. And this is one product I'm really excited about, and I think you're going to love it too. So until next time, bye-bye.